Welcome to Season 3 of The Lifestyle Chase, and I'm your host, Chris Little. This podcast features high performers who have found a way to live their best life while balancing their health, wellness, friends, and family. To help this podcast grow, please share it on social media, rate 5 stars, tell your friends, and check out the past 140 episodes and counting. You can follow me on Instagram at Christian Little and at The Lifestyle Chase. Thanks for listening. Let's get started. All right, so welcome to The Lifestyle Chase. I am joined by a non-fitness guest this time. Her name is Carmen Choney. This is episode 193 of The Lifestyle Chase. And how are you doing today?
I'm good. I like that setup. That's like she's non-fitness. Don't expect anything goal or fitness oriented from her. She is not in it.
Well, I mean, I had to clarify just because people will get used to me interviewing like trainers and personal development people. And the reason that I kind of change up the guest list so frequently is that I want people to get used to seeing the value in other people's life experiences and how they can kind of transpose it to their own career. Like, I have learned so much from people outside of the fitness industry in ways that have helped me both in my personal life and professional life. And when I was chatting with our mutual friend, Dean Guido, I was like, Dean, who should I get on the podcast? And without any hesitation, he plugged your name. And so shout out to Dean. He's probably been one of the people who've gotten the most shout outs on this show. So anybody who isn't following Dean Guido should go check him out at Guido Power. But with all that
especially
out of the way,
right now, he's on a meme track of like you can't keep up with his memes right now. So that's worth it alone.
He's on fire. How are you doing today? Like, how is your week going?
I'm good. I'm going to tell you today, I've got a hoarse throat. I've got a few less lashes. I'm coming out of a weekend. I was doing the Together Again series at the Northlands track, and we had 2 nights of comedy and a night of rock fest. And so I'm a little disheveled today and trying to catch my breath. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy. A, I'm happy to be working. B, I'm happy to be at home sleeping in my own bed at night. And still get paid to work. So there's some nice feelings in there, but I'm good. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I mean, even just watching your Instagram stories leading up to this, I was like, oh, she's going to be tired. Like, I felt honored that you made time for the show today. For anybody who has never met you or doesn't know who you are, how would you introduce yourself at a party? Like, how do you casually introduce yourself and what you do and who you're all about kind of thing?
Well, I usually walk in dancing and making a scene, first of all, so they have to take notice. No, I'm kidding. I've been on the road for over 20 years. Let's go with over 20 years in the role of tour manager. I've done merchandise, day-to-day management, some publicity. I've worked in the music business pretty much since I was 18. I came out of school and went straight, actually, even while I was in university, I was doing music, but went straight into life on the road. So yeah, I've been on the road up until last year, full time pretty much. And I do everything from stage managing certain events to tour managing Jess Moskluke and the Hunter Brothers and a few other artists from time to time. So yeah, I live on the road. I live fast. My mom told me not to marry a trucker, but she didn't tell me not to be one. And I pretty much think that's what I am. I have a suitcase always packed and ready to go because you never know when the next show is coming, especially this day and age.
I mean, with the amount of perspective that this last year of like quiet would have given you, like what were the things that kind of stood out to you as you were kind of forced to reflect or forced to be introspective kind of thing?
It was tough. I mean, it was tough for everybody. I don't think anybody came out of this pandemic being like, I'm a better person. I feel better about myself. I know what I want to do in my life. We're all just kind of like PTSDing and out of it a little bit, deciding what we should do or what we shouldn't do. And I think that my lines or the whole thing was, hey, I've never been through a pandemic before. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to react. I don't know how I'm going to be on the other end of it. And I was pretty honest in that, but I don't think I really understood my own self until we were coming out of it. Because at the beginning of it, you're still thinking like, okay, we were going home for 2 weeks. We had just started a big tour with Gord Bamford. And, we made it 3 shows into what would have been over 70 shows. So we were hoping that we're going to go home for 2 weeks and we're going to kick this thing and go back out. And then, you go home for your 2 weeks and you start cleaning your house like everybody has big plans for, and talking about the things you're going to renovate and learn. And I had all that, signed up for guitar lessons that I never took one of. All those kind of things that I thought were going to be great. And I just realized that there was a loss of identity. I know how to be busy. I know how to plan my days, back to back. I get all that. What I don't know how to do is have downtime and be home. And it would be different if I could be downtime at home and be able to do all the things that I'd never done. I'd never been home a summer of my adult life to be able to go to the lake and go to weddings and funerals and different occasions. I've never been home to do that. But this was the year that I could be at home, but I couldn't do anything anyways. So that was tough. I'm a social person. I like to go. I like to, bop around and see different people. And I'll go on a whim and go to Banff for the weekend or whatever the case is. And the loss of freedom really became a loss of identity for me. I like to look ahead. I like to look at, as a tour manager, I'm always looking at numbers. So I'm not looking if it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm looking at the 17th, 18th, and 19th. I know where we're going to be. So not having that end game, having that end point of when this ends and we start again was soul sucking. And I think even coming out of it, I myself became apprehensive to I don't want to get excited because that show's going to come and it's going to go away, because that happened many times. Oh, no, it's coming. It's fine. And even until we're, getting to it, you're like, is this actually going to happen? I still feel like that, to be completely honest. I'm, now that we're back in the kind of environment that we are, I'm still kind of waiting for that other moment of we're going home again. And that's hard. And then the other side of that is because I've been doing it so long, I always thought, well, what would I do if I came off the road? Because I love the road. I'm not done with the road. A lot of people this year came off the road, obviously forced off the road, and was like, I don't know if I want to go back. And I was like, I want to go back faster and more and do all of the things all the time. It was the opposite for me. I was ready to go back. But there's, the trying to decide, well, if we can't, if this is not real anymore, how do we survive? What are you going to go into? And up until now, I thought, well, I'll come off the road and I'll go into travel, because I know how to book flights. I know where the fancy little places. I love the non-touristy places about a town. I love finding those, the coffee shops and the egg rolls at a certain place. I love that kind of thing. So I thought, well, that'd be fun. I would go into that, but I would still not be working. So yeah, definitely screwed with my mind. I'm not going to lie with that, but feels better now, but it doesn't feel back to normal. What's normal about this? There's nothing normal about our lives right now. And every day something changes.
Everything about that was so relatable. I don't know if any other person that does the work that I do would feel the same way I did, but just the loss of identity and just the whole no end goal. Honestly, if I'm being totally transparent, I started seeing a counselor or a therapist after the pandemic, because I lost a big sense of purpose, and it got in my head, and it just stacked on and on and on. But having done that, it's oh man, this is very handy. I often have a lot of stuff in my head, and to be able to break that down into bite-sized pieces and just attack these little things, and sort of how you reflected on maybe you'd go into travel and how you could articulate the reasons why was really cool, and something that that gets my attention with your career path is the amount of awareness of other people that you would have to have. You're managing high performers, people who have to be at their best game night after night after night, who often there is such a whenever I'm looking at an artist or someone who's performing or somebody who's in the public eye night after night, it impacts them, and then you managing them, you kind of have to call them out on their shit, sort of thing. So can you reflect on a time when that's sort of happened?
Yeah, that happens often. And to be completely transparent with you, I don't know when it happens. I don't have any sense of when I'm reaching my tipping point. I don't know. I was at a stage managed Big Valley Jamboree in Camrose. A few years ago, we'd made it through the weekend, and there's always a storm. We never get through Camrose without some kind of weather. And I was there when the stage fell in 2009. So weather is sensitive to anybody that was there for that. So we're always heightened for that. And it had just been a weekend. And on the Monday afterwards, I was packing up my stuff to go home, and I went to see my girlfriend in the merch booth, and I was like, God, I just don't feel good. Like, shoulders hurt, my back hurts, like the tight chest. And she's kind of looking at me, and her eyes are getting bigger and bigger. She's like, are you having a heart attack? And I was like, no, I'm just tired. And then, like, look at the size of my calves. I'm clearly dehydrated. She's like, no, Choney, I think something's going on. I was like, I'm fine. And then she's like, here's going to be your test. She handed me a big Gatorade, and she said, drink this and see what you feel like at the end of it. And I was standing with her, and I drank the Gatorade, and I, like a 2-year-old, turned around and projectile vomited, like 6 feet. Like, it just came out of me, and I was like, ooh, something's not right. And so my other girl from backstage said, I think you should go checked out. And I said, well, I'm not going to go to the hospital in Camrose and get stuck here for 4 days. So dummy over here drove back to the city, phoned my sister-in-law on the way and said, I'm not panicking. I just need you to stay on the phone with me until I get to the hospital. Like, I think I might be having a heart attack. And she was like, you think you might be having this is a casual, like, pull over and call an ambulance. It's like, no, I'm okay. And anyways, long story short, went to the hospital and put me through, all the tests, and my heart was fine. It was nothing to do with that. But it was exhaustion. And I had no idea what exhaustion felt like. I didn't know that was, that you can make it all this way. And looking back, how many signs there had been, until I was like, oh no, I can't move my body, and nothing will stay down. That I was like, okay, someone else had to be like, no, this isn't right. That happens often. Like, my doctor said, not too long ago, I've got really bad sinuses. And so he was talking about stuff, and I had another sinus infection. He said, do you live a high stress life? This is pre-pandemic. And I said, well, I don't think so, but I'm sure everybody else that looks at my life would say so. He said, so I'm going to ask your question again. Do you live a high stress life? I guess I got to admit, yes. Like, to me, that's like a fault, and it shouldn't be. That should be a very real thing. Is like, I know I'm responsible for, in that case, a stage, and give everybody getting on and off on time and safely, and having all of their gear. And then on the road, there's 9 of us that travel. There's 9 of us that fly. We all have gear. We all have transportation issues. We all have all those things to deal with, and to make sure, line up so that we can all be in the same place at the same time. And I don't realize until after it's done what I've taken on myself, because it's easier for me to do it than to tell someone else or teach someone else. I get that. I understand that I should ask for help, but like, that ask is worse than actually just doing it myself.
And that makes sense. With that in mind, like, do you find that you're better or more in tune with when somebody else is, like, just completely exhausted than when you are exhausted? Like, are you better at managing someone else's well-being?
100%. Yeah. I recognize it instantly. I carry, I wish I had it beside me. I carry a very big purse. They call it the Carmacy, because it has everything in it. Like, it's almost this game now. Like, let's see, does she have this in her purse? And does she have this in her purse? I've got like Ziplocs that like just stack in together of things. So no, I like that. I like to recognize that in other people, and try and help the solution, but not in myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I ever have. Like, if I look back, even before I started working, like in high school and before that, I don't know I had that ability to do that in myself. Easy for me to recognize it in someone else and try to bring them back. But I don't know if that's been a, self-awareness thing for me ever.
Well,
Trying to be better, but not
that's
that
a
great at
common
it.
thing within within the fitness industry, or any industry where you're working with people. It could be like a manager in a business or something, where you're trying to, like, make sure everything runs as it should, or where you need to kind of guide people to their outcome. Like, you have a role in that whole process. So with everything that you've had to kind of, like, take care of people with, like, what was the thing that challenged you the most? Like, when you're keeping an eye on people, keeping an eye on your performers or your colleagues, and you're like, okay, like, I think you're worn out. What was the moment that you're like, holy crap, like, this is a problem, kind of thing?
That's a really good question. Uh, I don't, to be completely honest, I don't know. I'm good cop, bad cop. So I'm always aware. That's my job, is to be aware of what's going on. So I never let it get, I hope I don't get, I should say that first of all, I hope I don't let it get to that point where I don't see it coming. But I'm always putting out the small fires. I'm trying to fix them before it happens. I'm trying to smooth them out before it happens. And I get more fulfillment in helping it not happen than opposed to fixing it when it does. So I don't know if I can honestly answer that happening after the fact, that comes to top of mind, because like I said, I'm always just kind of thinking ahead, waiting for it to happen. And I'm your best friend until you screw with one of my artists, or you screw with one of my stagehands, or whatever the case is. Then I'll cut a bitch. It's just what it is, because that's your family. When you're whether you're on the road, this is very much like the gym. When you're on the road or where you're on a stage, those people are your family. They are your safety net. I stay in my lane, you stay in your lane, and nobody gets a weight dropped on their foot. Basically, we're of the same brain. If I'm doing my job and I'm making sure that everything on that stage is set up and looks great, then I'm helping them to have a show that doesn't fail. Or if I'm on stage and I'm making sure that a microphone is turned on, which yesterday I forgot about, sorry, Lars. Things like that, those little things that seem trivial, that's what I'm preparing for at all times. Or that there's a towel or a bottle of water so that someone is not in the middle of a song going and not being able to turn around and clear their throat. Again, no different than making sure there's a safety on, and that weight is not going to injure somebody. Your voice is an injury. What you can do to your voice is equally as harming as your voice is a muscle that you can injure equally as you would at the gym. So, always thinking that in mind, is I'm trying to be one step ahead so that we don't get into part where we have to take action afterwards. Well, it's long, if things happen in our world, you don't bounce back as easy. So trying to stay ahead of it is hard.
It's cool to hear that answer and know from having done the research ahead of this episode, I could see everything that talked about your career, talked about the length of the career. You talked about how you've been on the road for basically 2 decades, and that is a long career. You look at any other industry, and sometimes people have a hard time surpassing 5 years or 3 years or 10 years. So there's a lesson to be taken away from that in just the structure that you have in place, or the things that you prepare with, can help you make it the long haul kind of thing. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I think I've said that 30 times in the last 2 weeks. But it's such a common expression, such a valuable expression to kind of get people into the right headspace. You talked about your large bag that's kind of like your mobile pharmacy. When did that begin? What was the first moment where you realized that was a necessity?
Always. I've always had a big bag. Growing up, the girls had the fanny packs and the little ones. I had, a bag that I would get from a perfume. When you buy perfume and they give you a travel bag, that was my purse. Even going to high school, my purse was my backpack. That, they were always together. So it's got progressively bigger and bigger. And then it was well, no, I would carry it in my work box. And by the time you take it from your work spot, I'll just throw it in my purse because we're going to need that. Or on the plane, we might need this. Or what if something goes missing? We'll need it. So that answer is easy for me. It's always been like that. It's just now at the point where now it's excessive. And I'm aware of that I now carry, instead of carrying a pack of gum, I carry mint and juicy fruit in case someone doesn't like mint or someone doesn't like juicy fruit. I have too many things in there of versions, or lip glosses. I have a matte and a glossy finish because you never know who wants what. It's ridiculous. It's out of control and it needs to be stopped. And that if you know someone who can intervent for that, I need an intervention. I need someone like Toomey. If Toomey wants to sponsor me and give me something that has more organization, I'm all in. Help me with that.
That's awesome. I have actually had a minimalist that has been on my show, and if you go to Instagram, just follow Practically Minimal.
That scares me. That gives me a little bit of anxiety. oh, okay, I'll get rid of that. Like I hang on to everything. And my girlfriends will tell you that it is a joke. Like that's one thing I did during the pandemic was went through some old of my storage room, went through some old like Rubbermaid pins that I had from like junior high with like handwritten notes that I've shared with people and like I have everything. I save everything, not in the hoarding way, but in the packing and Rubbermaid kind of way. So yeah, that minimalist thing, it's not good over here.
That would be tough. But with everything that you've had in the bag, what has come the most clutch in like a pressing situation? What was somebody like, holy crap, you have one of those?
Wet naps. And that sounds so stupid. And I was on a plane and I had a lady beside me and she had kids and things were going on. And I leaned in my bag and I know exactly where that is in my bag. And I reached in and handed her a wet nap. And she's like, are you a mom? And I was like, no, I'm a tour manager. She goes, same thing. That was very handy. I mean, little things all the time. I have more Sharpies than I know what to do with. That's all. I always tell people that. It's like, you always need a Sharpie. Not just if you're famous and signing autographs, but you always need a Sharpie. That's one thing that comes in play. But I have, oh no, I've got everything there. I can't even tell you what's I've never lost. Here's the thing. I've never lost, you maybe don't know this as a man, but baby showers, there's this game where like, if you can pull this out of your purse, you get a point. I've never lost that game. Never. And like the things that kind of be in there, like, oh, do you have I don't even know how to say it. Like, do you have a stone or something? And I always pull out, I carry a rock that, if you have salt, that's not good salt, it balances your salt out. Or if you're at an airport and you're going through the metal detectors, it takes out the metals of that. Like I have that in my purse. So I have 3 kinds of allergy pills. I have, Advil and Tylenol and ibuprofen and all of the things. So
holy crap.
But I think wet naps is definitely the one that gets used the most for sure.
Well, you talked about Sharpies and it kind of got me thinking, like, I know why I would carry a Sharpie. Like, oftentimes I walk around and I have a pen or something in my car or with me because it's like I have to write down notes when I think of things or when I think of just a website that I want to like bookmark or something. I'm not on a device, but what is the value of Sharpies when you're kind of reflecting on that?
Well, they always come neat. Look, think about going to the grocery store and you think, oh, I better remember that for the next time. And you're looking for a pen. You can't find a pen, but you can find a Sharpie. A Sharpie is easy. You know what a Sharpie feels like. If you're reaching in your pocket or in your jacket or whatever, you know what a Sharpie feels like. It's there. It's instant. You have it. You go outside. You're going to a wedding and you notice on your black shoes that there is a big scuff. You've kicked the tires. You've gone out. You Sharpie that shit. You get that done. Like it is your best friend. You never know when you get to a wedding and there's a table marking and you brought the wrong guest and you have to scratch out that name. Wouldn't be able to do that without Sharpie.
Love it. So with you going on so many tours and being kind of like sort of on stage behind the scenes, just seeing so many different perspectives that many people don't have the opportunity to see, I can imagine like you must have seen things along your tour. And the first thing I'm thinking about is like, if I am on a stage and I'm looking out at the audience, sometimes you see an audience member that stands out or something like that. What is an instance where that's happened that's really stood out to you?
I'm trying to keep this clean, but I've seen some stuff. Let's just put that. I've seen stuff against the railing at the front of the stage. No cares who saw it, no cares, nothing. Literally on the rail in front of the artist.
That's nuts.
Yeah. And the worst part, Christian, is I've seen that more than once. It's like things like that. But I've also been able to stop fights that I see happening. You see something happening off to the side and you're like, that's about to happen. Well, then I'm able to tell. I'm always looking for it. So when Big Valley is a great example for that. When someone says, have a great weekend, I was like, your great weekend and my great weekend are very different because I'm looking outwards and you're looking upwards. So you're looking at what's happening up here and all the time. And I'm looking the other way to see not only what the entertainers are seeing, but also what security is seeing. Also, what Josh Clausen is seeing when he's looking for weather, like those kind of things. I'm looking out all the time. We're watching the storms come in as it's 35 and hot. And we can see that one cell coming directly at us. That's what, I'm looking to come in. But definitely the dirty things are more memorable. But my own cousin happened to have one of those not the dirty moments. Let me start time out. No, not the dirty moments. But he'd come to the front of the stage at a big ballet show, and I was watching him walk down, and he might have had a few Budweisers, and then walked down, and he got to the very front, and he didn't realize it. He had stopped to stand in front of his mom and my mom, who are sisters. And from my position, was able to watch the whole thing happen. Security tried to tell him to sit down. His mom tap him on the shoulder, him hug his mom and try to dance with her and then sit down in the first place. But moments like that, that was funny in my case because it happened to me, my own family. But things like that, like you're like, someone comes mad, they're so mad until they get to the front of the stage and they see their best friend over there and everything changes. Like those are fun moments for me. However, I've also had, here's a good story. I don't know why today everything's about Big Valley, but it's top of mind. I had a guy come backstage one time, and we had Jason Aldean on stage, and security came over and they're like, this guy is back here and he's saying he's Jason Aldean's brother. And I was like, let me at him. Like, this is fun. I love that. Let's start by saying I love that. If there is a challenge, anybody that drops my name to me, oh, well, Carmen said to come. Carmen said this. It's like, okay, just give me the story. I want to hear everything. Because I promise you, if there's a story to be told, I've heard it. And if there's an excuse to be given, I've stored it in my memory. So this guy, I said, point him out. So I went over to him and I said, so I hear you're Jason's brother. He said, yeah. And I said, oh, okay. So like, are you hoping to see him? He's like, yeah, he told me I could be up here until he gets here. And I said, oh yeah. I said, because he flew in last night, right? He's like, yeah. And I said, oh, he flew in last night. I said, did you meet him for dinner? Oh yeah, we hung out all night. And he had his pass hanging down. And I said, oh, you flew in last night. He's like, yeah. Did you know our last name's not really LD? And I said, oh no, I didn't know that, which it's not. But I mean, Wikipedia will tell you that. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to give you one chance to tell me the real story here because Jason's not in town yet. And so I know he was there last night. And I can see by your tan that you were here yesterday. So you want to just tell me where your pass came from? And he's like, well, no, he's my brother. And I was like, I got security right behind me. So I'm going to give you one more chance to come clean to the story. He's like, fine. I wanted to use the porta potty backstage. So I asked this guy if I could buy his pass so it can come to pee back here and not pee out there. It's like, you realize you were this close to getting kicked off of this site to pee backstage. He's like, yeah, it was worth it. Now, reactive me could have been like, oh, this guy needs to get out. He stole a pass, whatever. I was entertained. I was like, that's so stupid and so funny. It could have been bad. It could have been a bad situation, but handling it the way I handled it, it ended up being entertaining for all of us. He gave me the pass back. I told him to go get his $20 back. And the guy that he gave the pass to got reprimanded. And that guy lived happily ever after. Also had guys walk right on stage. We were Boots and Hearts and we were standing off to the side of the stage and my band already had their guitars on stage and everything. And watch this guy just walk out of the crowd and walked on stage and picked up Justin's guitar and started playing it. And we're all kind of standing there and we're like, I don't think so. And so a guy that wasn't really security, that acted like security, walked up and just walked towards him. The guy put the guitar back down and ran away. But just like, no, of course I went looking for him to have him removed from the site. He should be removed from the site. But, weird things happen like that all the time. If something weird doesn't happen at a show, it's not a memorable show. We say that in our band. It's like, if a show goes off and nothing goes wrong, we don't generally talk about those shows. Oh yeah, how was catering? Great. How was transportation? Awesome. How was the hotel? Great. Like we all had our own rooms. Yeah. So, and the show was perfect. Great crowd. You're leaving there like, no, we're not gonna. You're kind of waiting for those moments all the time. It's nice. It's refreshing. Those are nice to have, but. When you're watching stuff happen in front of you or, I have 20 years worth of stories. So obviously there's enough there, but yeah, something's always waiting to happen.
Definitely. I mean, with all the travel that you've done, like going to different locations, kind of learning different like tricks, where do you enjoy going to the most? Like you've made the rounds, you've gone around like North America. Like have you traveled beyond North America to like Europe and stuff? Like
yeah, and we've been really fortunate enough to have a fan base and been able to play a few times in Australia, which is a whole different ball game for us. And it's such a trip because the songs that are popular here and the songs that are like Jess specifically, the songs that have made Jess quote unquote famous here are not the same songs that they have reached there. So going there, you see it's kind of, it's eyes wide open because you don't know what's happening. You're waiting to see Jess was on stage playing and, we do cheap wine and cigarettes at the end of the set generally. And we did Save Some of That Whiskey, and the crowd sang every single word. And we're like, that song? Like, what? Why that song? But that was the song they got introduced to her with. So it would have been like us getting Keith Urban here and being like, that's his new song. They got the Canadian there, and they were like, well, that's that song. By the time they got to Cheap Wine and Cigarettes, which is an older song, they were like, yeah, this is a great song, but it's just another song. So I love that kind of thing. I love sort of identifying what people love in other places. And Nashville's a home away from home. So we've got a lot of friends, and, up until the pandemic, we'd go 3 or 4 times a year, if not more. So Jess does all her recordings and most of her writing there. So, you sort of see that angle there. But for myself, for travel wise, we were fortunate to become friends with the people of Exuma in the Bahamas, the great Exumas. And we did a couple shows at the Grand Isle Resort, and it's in Emerald Bay. So like the most beautiful water I've ever seen, the most beautiful beaches I've ever seen. And you'd be there for a week and have 2 shows. And those shows were, just kind of like campfire shows because it's good people and good times and a few punches in there. And yeah, it's stunning. I love Exuma. But I have to be fully admitting that I love Canada. I love touring Canada. We were in Tyne Valley, PEI a couple weeks ago, which was awesome. Halifax and all of Nova Scotia, even the Blue Rocks. There's nothing like the East Coast of Canada. I always tell people people like to go to Mexico or wherever for vacation. Go to our own country because we've got some stunning spots. And then on the other side, and BC has got its own. I'm a wine girl, so I like to go to wine country and try different stuff there. And even on the island, got some friends that own a couple places out there that we like to go and have some beverages at. And so I don't have a favorite. I have a favorite at the time. Like Tyne Valley is my favorite right now because we were just there a couple weeks ago. But I think once, we've some very cool middle of nowhere places that have been memorable. So I like it all. I can find something awesome in each town. Like I was saying, I like those kind of, mom and pop places and the hole in the wall coffee shops. Those are our favorite. We're kind of coffee snobs in our band. So to find something that isn't a chain is a good day for us. And they will get all of our business for the entire time that we're there. So we love that.
Well, it's super cool the way that you frame that in the sense that like if a person holds one place on like a pedestal kind of thing, or just like nowhere else is as good as the one place that they went to enjoyed one time, they're going to miss out on so many other things. It's kind of like great experiences are in our backyard. Like great experiences are not that far away. Great connections could be people that we already know kind of thing. Very similar to the fact that like anybody can be a guest on a podcast. Like everybody has a story. That's something that I enjoy about Shane Fennessy's show, City of Champions. Just how he is much like myself, and in fact kind of was one of the inspirations for my podcast back a few years ago, in just that he would interview all kinds of people and like pull out the stories from those people.
I know, like I talked about placentas with Shane. So he has the ability to get you to talk about anything. That's for sure.
Definitely. I mean, like there are so many like sort of eclectic conversations that he has, but at the same time, he would be living a very similar life to you, being like a producer in the film industry kind of thing and traveling and whatnot. But one thing that I'm curious about is like when you're booking flights and hotels and all these different things that need to be just so or at a location for certain dates, etc. What is the best advice that you have for other people from what you've learned over the past couple of decades?
Well, that it's changed. All of it has changed over time. I used to say, book flights on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and not Fridays and Saturdays. But even that changes because prices now change based on availability. And right now, airlines suck. Just going to say it, they suck. Every flight we have booked till the end of the year has been changed at least once. Like, it's just, what we would have experienced beforehand is very different to what's happening now. But I say loyalty is key. And it doesn't matter if that's a hotel or if that's an airline. We're Air Canada whores for that particular reason. It's not the same WestJet feel-good moment, but we fly with 3 bags at 70 pounds. And for a band, that's priceless. And getting your loyalty up where they see your history and that you do specifically fly with them, or same thing hotels, they always seem like they're out of reach and probably high class, or I don't even know the right word for that, but places like the West End and Fairmont specifically in my case, when you're in their family, they're very good to you. And that goes a long way when you're booking 9 rooms all the time in different places. Yes, that doesn't happen in every town, but Holiday Inns do and those kind of things. And the loyalty to that, you should have, back in the day, we would have, stacks of cards that we traveled with. And I know Rick Bazoon still does, tour manager out of BC. He still has his stack. But, you have numbers for everything. Be part of every loyalty group and get involved in all of that, because the membership has its perks, as they say. And that you can turn that around. And, even hotels.com or Hotwire, any of those that if you use them consistently, the benefit back to you is nice. So sign up. And if you don't want your email used, come up with an email that you only have for that. I have, my old Hotmail address. That's what everything is signed to. I forget. And, they're like, oh, can I have a reminder notice? And you're like, why am I not getting this reminder? You're like, oh yeah, it's back in my Hotmail. What did I change my password to this time? But, that have one place that you put all of that to. That's probably my biggest advice.
Well, I like that. And it kind of corresponds with the fact that, to me, loyalty means so much just with any connection that I have. If I, by nature, am a very loyal person, and when I find other people that are the same way, that is just money. That is just the coolest feeling, because, not all of life is all sunshine and roses. And if you have people that are willing to, sit in the shit with you, it's going to be a lot easier to navigate whatever is ahead of you. With regards to that, I can imagine not all of your career was sunshine and roses and you needed to have people to sit in the shit with you. Who were those people for you?
I'm very fortunate that, the music business is a gigantic family, and, we're in the good and the bad together. And I really do mean that, obviously there's competition and there's some jealousy and all those things. But in the end, we all have the same bottom line and goals with each other. And I think that when the sun is shining and you don't hear from people, but that they're there and you see them, it's the rose and the thorn. What's your rose of the day? What's your thorn of the day? When the thorns start coming around and poking you harder, that's when you see those diamonds in the rough, the ones that you never thought would be like, hey, are you okay? Or the beginning of the pandemic, I've got to give some shout outs to a few people that they're checking in to be like, hey, I know this is the first time you've been home. And it wasn't necessarily other managers or other tour managers. It was artists. It was artists being like, we know that you have protected us before, so who's protecting you? And that's gone a long way. But to say that there's been one person, my family is great. My family, as a whole, I come from a very big family. My immediate family is small. My dad passed away, and so it's just my mom and I. But our extended family is massive. My cousins are like my brothers and sisters, and we're very tight in that. And I feel like earlier in my career, I had to apologize a lot, and to be like, I'm sorry, I'm a bad friend, or I'm sorry, I'm a bad daughter, I'm sorry for everything. And now it's like, no, we get it. You have to do a Zoom call, or we know we have to do this. So afterwards, it's, I kind of think that the role that I'm in is a hard one to explain and to understand. It's hard to understand what I do for a living because I do a lot of random things. My business card says a lot of random things on it. But once you understand that you go, that I don't have a 9 to 5. To me, like, a trade job is easy to understand. You know that when you go to work at 8 or 9 o'clock and you come home at 5 o'clock, when you're at home, you're done. I'm not. My phone is always on. And, I get more work done from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. than I do from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Like I work late as opposed to early because there's no one messaging or questions or anything like that. And I'm not saying that that's bad during the day. I'm just saying that my focus time becomes later. So to say that I had one person that backed me up, but would be inaccurate. I would say that I've had my life is surrounded by amazing people, and I've got a pretty great circle of girls that are my bitches. And I say that in the most way. I love a lot of things. I love love. I love pickles. Like, I love smelly candles. I love things, but I bitch my bitches. Like, my bitches are like my ride or dies. So there's, having that in your back pocket to be like, when stuff's going down, and be like, I just need to not talk about work, or I just need to not talk about flights or whatever the case. What happened in your day? They're good to turn it on and turn it off. And I'm pretty grateful for that. And I was definitely grateful for that during the pandemic, because when I don't have anything happen in my life, I want to know what happens in everybody else's life to give me the excitement of that. So, one of my bitches is I say my sister-in-law, but it's my cousin's wife, and she's got 2 young ones. And so my world revolves around those small humans. I adore them. So knowing what's happening with them was like, that's what I needed during the pandemic. So I'm pretty lucky to have a wide variety of people that support me. So.
Well, that's super cool. And even just like how you talked about it, and reflecting on how sometimes the support comes from like the most unexpected places. And something that I often do that I find to be helpful is just like, I sort of like sit down, reflect, and take an assessment of the people who I have like connected with in the week. And sometimes I catch myself taking people for granted. And so I try and remind myself like, okay, I went for a walk with this person, or I got to spend time with this person, or I had a really good chat with this person. And then I just like focus on those interactions and reflect on that. It's kind of like sort of manifesting more good interactions kind of thing. Like, not to be too hippy dippy, but it's just like, if your focus is on what you have rather than what you don't have, you're going to have more of that. And I really liked how you talked about the industry that you're in being sort of like a big family, in the sense that like it's competitive sometimes and people get jealous sometimes, but you got to look out for each other. And I think that's an important just foundation to have in any kind of like long-term career. I look at my podcast as an example of that, in the sense that like I have no trouble interviewing a trainer that's in the same gym as me and talking about all of their strengths and all of their good qualities. I have nothing to lose. I'm just going to get to know a connection that is going to make my life better, that could possibly benefit the lives of like my clients and anybody that listens to my show. Because like there's room for everybody kind of thing. And I just think that was an important takeaway that I hope people kind of had sink in.
Yeah, you're right. So true about listening. We're so fast. We live in such a fast life. Our life is go, go, go. All of us, everyone. We don't live like our grandparents did. We don't take Sundays off. We don't spend evenings around the table together and watching the news. Like, our lives are very fast. And it's easy to have a story and tell a story, have a story, tell a story, have a story. And taking that extra second to listen and hear it and absorb it, it goes so far. I think that people are really missing, and people want more than anything, is to be acknowledged, whether it's good or bad. I'm all about owning shit. So like, you have a screw up, own it. You'll feel better and I'll feel better, and we will move on and we will never talk about it again. But if you don't own it and I know you've done it and I'm just going to keep feeling it until you do, or vice versa, it's that pit in your stomach that you just can't do. So when you're owning something and you're listening and you're appreciating and telling somebody that you appreciate them, I try to do that. I'm not, again, life is busy and you get to it. But in the moment when someone does something that you appreciate, or even after the moment, you think of something you said. I had that happen yesterday. I thought something, I was like, oh, that in the moment that felt funny and that felt like a time, but that may not have felt like that. Taking that step and being like, hey, I didn't mean that to come across as, ungrateful or crude, but, and, that person being like, wow, I never even thought of that. Having that exchange and acknowledging that emotion that someone's feeling is real. I think that we don't always allow ourselves to have those emotions of, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm famous for, if you're having a bad day, something traumatic is happening, feel it, be mad, be sad, be all of those things, but give yourself an end zone. So you want to be mad and cry your eyes out right now, you go for it. I will actually sit on this phone and I'll let you do it. But at, 11:14, you're done. You have to change your drink and you have to change your scene and you have to walk out of that room and move past it so that you can be in the moment. You can feel what those feelings feel like, but you can step out of it afterwards. Doesn't mean that you're not going to come back and feel it again, but there has to be a moment that either like, whether it's sorrow, anger, or whatever, that passion that you feel has to be able to be felt to be able to move past it so that you can look past it and look back and be like, okay, that sucked, but I was able to come out of it. Because when you aren't able to come out of it, that's when shit goes down. And like, that's when things become a problem. So whether it's, like I said, the good, the bad, or the ugly, something really bad or something really good has happened, acknowledging that it's happened and then moving on is vital in my life. That's something I try to live by.
Well, that's going to be, if somebody's actually literally listening to that, that's going to help them out a lot, because that's, it's going to help people with relationship building and like sustaining those for years. Like that is something I've thought a lot about. Like how does one make a connection that lasts like a decade? Not that every connection needs to, but how does one kind of build on the foundation of something that creates those ride or die friends kind of thing? And one thing that kind of popped into my head was like, how, when you're meeting somebody for the first time, how do you kind of like read a person? Like what stands out to you? What's the first impression that people kind of set when you're getting to know them?
I'm an observer. I'm watching for energy. I'm watching for body movements. I'm watching for eye contact, but also identifying and understanding that that's not the same for everybody. So I'm an eye contact person. And when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to your eyes. And sometimes that's intimidating for someone who's not. A lot of people can talk to you, but they talk and they kind of move. And that's like their own insecurity. And if I'm following them with my eyes and trying to figure out where they're going, I'm just creeping them out. Like I'm doing that for my sake, but not for their sake. So I'm really sensitive to the fact that not everybody is as outgoing and as loud and in your face as I am. I'm a very touchy, huggy person, which now is hard because you go to do it and you're like, I just did that yesterday when I met Chelsea Handler and I was like, yeah, like you just don't know what to do, and that's the age that we're living in. Pre-2020, I would have hugged you if I didn't know you. You know that. Once you're in my circle, like it doesn't mean if you know somebody, but like, I just think of L2. If you came in there and you were a new person there, you were my friend instantly. I've never met you and you're instantly my friend, but that's my personality with. But a trick that I've taught myself over the years is I need to say, when I meet you for the first time, I need to say your name 3 times and then it's there. So if I say it, and like in your case, I'd say Chris or Christian, Chris, trying to find the spot. And then whatever stuck, then you're okay. Then if I see you, I'm going through that list to be like, oh, okay, I met you here and I did this and, this is this. And for me, that works. A lot of people, it's writing it down, but mine is I have to orally say it 3 times and it usually stores in there somewhere. I have to go through the big Rolodex to find it. But, usually there's a moment there where they're like, okay, I met you that. I have a weird detail thing. And it's like, I will remember the strangest, stupidest things. So like if you and I are having this conversation and you give me a quote, I'm going to remember the basis of it, but I'm not going to remember the exact words. But I'm going to remember what you were wearing, where we were, and what we had been eating at the same time. Like those stupid little details, my mind seems to like that kind of stuff. What color pen you were using as opposed to the specific words. That's just how I roll.
That's cool. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but like I'm
I am a lot to unpack, Chris, as you can tell.
it was super cool because there's things that people might be learning just now. Like people are learning if they are introverted or extroverted. People are learning that how they are isn't how everybody else is. I like that you brought up the eye contact because I'm kind of similar. Like I pay attention to if somebody's like looking at me when I'm talking to them because then I feel like more of a sense of connection. But then as I learn about all the different people that are in any setting that we could be, sometimes eye contact is really, really tough. But there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like amazing qualities about that person. And then I have to have like the awareness to understand that just because I have a bias towards something doesn't mean that that is like how they exist in this space. And I'm going to miss out on a connection if I stay in my own echo chamber kind of thing. And that translates to all kinds of industries, whether it be like restaurants that like to have like red brick and then they like to associate with other restaurants with the red brick kind of thing. Like they got to
Yeah.
be open to like the outdoor patios too, because then they're going to learn some lessons of serving people in all weather scenarios kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think we all do that. You take the good and the bad and the new. You know, that's a restaurants are a perfect example of that. You go to a patio, especially like I just think of like when changes were coming with the pandemic. It was like, okay, they're putting up plexiglass, but look how they're putting up plexiglass. Well, they're doing plexiglass and they're changing their tables this way. Well, of course, you're going to use something from that one in your own personal space because it makes you better. That is exactly the same with people. When I meet someone, I had a weird example of this, but I was at a show a couple weeks ago and someone I knew was carrying around a red Solo cup. I have no idea what was in it. Might have been water. But visually to me, I was like, that's like, is that a comfort thing? Is that like, are you like me? I'm like, well, I can't hug with two hands if I've got a red Solo cup in my hand. Visually seeing that and being like, well, I don't want to have that. I don't want to be that person that carries it. I'm not saying there was absolutely anything wrong with them or with what they had in their cup or whatever the case is, but it was a visual for me to be like, no, I don't want that. Absorbing those moments of someone else's movements for your own is no different than, in any business. If you can take what someone else is doing, and sometimes it's great, be like, man, I like that, silly things, whatever it is, but like, I'm going to adjust that to my life. It's observing, in a complimenting way. Like, here, I like that you're doing that and I'm going to do this.
That's awesome. When it comes down to touring with all of your artists that you've worked with, what is something that they do that makes a community want them to come back? Like, what is something, what is the secret sauce? What is the thing that you see that gets them to come back?
Respect, 100%. Don't piss anybody off. We're all there for the same thing. And, I think that I've been so lucky. I'm not even going to say lucky. Lucky is not the right word. We are all of the same mindset that when we're going to do a show, you go to do your show and stuff happens and gear doesn't work and, you don't have the right, whatever, speakers, for example. We're all there for the common reality and the common reason to entertain. And I don't care if that's music or if that's sports or if that's movies or if that's fitness or competition or whatever the case is. We're all there for the same thing. Any of us that are on this side are there to provide an escape. We are, and a reason for people to come to us is to not worry about their own lives. Or in fitness is like they're coming to you to be more like your life. Like you're the example. We're the same thing in entertainment or in music. People are coming for us for an experience and an escape. So what we happen and what we give them is a little bit of acting. Here it is. Come and be with us and be in the moment. But if I, as a jerk backstage, am being hard to deal with and, being demanding, it's not Carmen Choney that they remember as the asshole. It's Jess Moskaloop. She's the one that they're not going to remember my name. They're not going to remember what my position is. But that band, her name associated it is now the bad one. Going through security at an airport. That's by the way, that's what we get paid for. We don't get paid for shows. We get paid for travel and for security. That's what we get paid for. Going through security and there's an issue or there's something wrong with any band member. That security is not going to remember that band member, but they're going to remember Jess's name. So always remembering that your every move everything you do on the road reflects you as a whole and not individually. What I do in Edmonton on my own time is my own thing. But when you're collectively together, you're representing the good, again, the good and the bad. If someone has a great experience with me, they've had a great experience with Jess. So that's my number one thing is like, don't piss anybody off and show respect. We may not have the same idea of what we view as a good show. We may not see a crowd as a good crowd. We may not have the same idea of that. But if we're both on the same page of getting to the end result together, people are going to want to have you back.
That's cool. Like, just, it's so, like, on the surface level, a person's like, of course, respect people. But when you break it down, then a person gets to understand how much of an impact their every action makes. And not in, like, an obsessive way, but in a just, like, pay attention way. Like, pay attention to how you carry yourself when you're walking through the mall, or the tone that you're using when you're talking to a stranger that you don't know anything about, or the things that you say and how other people could receive it in comparison to how you might have received it if you were saying it to yourself. So it's just lots of value in that hopefully people hear. To kind of keep us on track with time, there are 2 questions that I often ask my guests, and I'm taking it old school for one of them. This one I asked for the first 100 episodes of the show, and I think I kind of fell off track, but I'll ask it again. And it is, if you were to give one piece of advice to someone on how to live their life to the fullest in the most authentic way, what would that piece of advice be?
Well, I learned a very valuable lesson from a wonderful man named William Shatner. And he says, never say no to an opportunity. And that has stuck with me because you may not be able to do it. You may not be able to do every opportunity, but not saying no to it on your first glance allows you so much opportunity. Not even the one presented to you, but way bigger from there. So that's my advice, is never say no to an opportunity, even if you can't do it.
Smart. And then the next question is, and this is basically putting you on the spot to put out a challenge to my audience. And so you're going to say your challenge for the day is, but I want it to be kind of unique to you, sort of like on brand with your personality, your experiences, something that you genuinely think that if a person actually literally does it, it's going to be a game changer. So basically all you have to do is say your challenge for the day is, and just put it out into the universe.
My challenge for today is to give a compliment to a stranger. It can be the most random things. That shirt looks good on you. That's a great color. And females, if you can compliment another girl's eyebrows, that's a game changer for them. That's lifelong. It's the most uncommon places. It's when you're paying for your groceries and you compliment someone for scanning that fast. Today, I would like everybody to give one compliment to a stranger.
Love that. And I'll share a story with you to kind of help people relate, because it's been something that I've heard people challenge people on a lot, but I'm like, when's the last time a person actually follows through, or when's the last time a person realizes the impact? And when I was 14 years old, I went to Sport Mart in Leduc. And it was my first time being in that store. It was the first time going and getting cool clothes. Before that, I was notorious for going to San. If you are familiar with San.
Yes.
I basically, my parents took me around and we did a tour of all the rurally located San stores as they were closing out, and I got all the clothes from them. And
I love that.
They went out of business, so I had to find a new place, and Sport Mart was it. So I was getting my first impression, checking out the shoes, looking at all the stuff. I'm wearing a green shirt from, I think it was Old Navy. And I had just got it, and I didn't know if I looked good or not, but a female associate came up and she was like, I really like your shirt. It matches your eyes. And I wore that shirt almost 5 days a week for the next year because it made me feel like a million bucks. And
I love that.
Just the momentum of that, Sport Mart was bought by the FGL group, so the Forzani group that owns Sport Check. I went and I worked for Sport Check because Sport Mart made me feel good. So it can go a long way. And with that being said, I'm curious, when's the last time a stranger complimented you, or just like something profound, like my example?
This weekend, actually, I had a couple really great moments. But someone said they were on stage and they had their girlfriend side stage, and she said, "You make this stage feel like home." She said, "When you walk up on stage, you're waiting for people to get you on stage and do that." She said, "And I look over here and you were dancing on the side of the stage." She said, "That changed the whole thing." She said, "I can tell you that when we went back there, they said, this is going to be a good show. Carmen's running the stage. We're okay." And that for me is a huge compliment. I don't, sometimes be like, well, is my job really that important? Like, I'm making sure everyone gets on and off on time. But to know that someone saw me in my element, which was being goofy and silly and dancing to Salt and Pepper on the side of the stage, and saw that as a comforting thing, changed the rest of my weekend. I was like, oh, okay, well, I won't hide that anymore, and I'll just be that. That was pretty cool for me. Anytime someone acknowledges my realness and me not, me in my element, that's you couldn't give me a bigger compliment than that.
I like that. The way you phrase that, just acknowledging the realness. Like more people need that opportunity to be acknowledged for their realness, their weirdness. Like the other day I was
Yeah.
chatting with Dean about somebody we know who we thought was a little bit weird. And I was, dude, we're all weird. We're just different shades of weird. Like that's like a paraphrase, but it just like reiterates the importance to just assume everybody in your life is a little weird and like
Yeah.
love them for it kind of thing.
Yeah, when I first started working out with Dean and Anthony, I was like, okay, I'm not normal. I can't come on a normal schedule. I can't do things. I can't eat the way you want me to eat because I live on the road, and sometimes I get a meal at midnight and it's pizza. So I'm sorry, like I would love to, but I'm Ukrainian. I'm saving for the famine. That's what I tell myself about my hips. But those things is like identifying that we're all different, and we whether it comes to training or music or likes, pardon me. I think of Alison Krauss, who's like one of the greatest, beautiful country voices, plays the fiddle. She rolled into Folk Fest listening to Pandera. And what? Like, what? You're not, what are you doing? Like, this is bizarre. What are you talking about? But understanding that we're all different and that's what makes us cool. And then also being able to see that what is our commonality. So like you're weird and I'm weird. So when we get together and talk about all the weirdness together, like, yeah, but I like that weird. Like, yeah, just being it. Don't, stop hiding it. I've done that for a long time. I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of age. I've never talked about my age. I turned 40 last year and I couldn't talk about it. I was not good with it. And everybody's like, own it. And I was like, I can't. I don't know how. And now I'm in the breath where I'm like, I've done a lot. I've done a lot in my time, and it is a blessing. And I am so fortunate to be here and to be able to talk about it and to have the stories I have, both personally and professionally. Like that is to me, like to be able to step back and be like, no, it's an honor. It's an honor to be able to grow old and to have the age behind you. And maybe I should start embracing that a little bit more. I think that if more people take that attitude about everything, about the pains in their life and the trials and tribulations in their life, and own it in the fact that it could make someone else feel better about it, we give ourselves a better community.
That's true. Like there's going to be a lot to sink in when people listen to this one, so hopefully that they check it out. But with that being said, I'd like to thank you so much for being on the show. It's been awesome to hear your wisdom today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.